Hello, my name is Stacey Couch, and my website is wildgratitude.com. Let's look at the child archetype, and specifically 3 paradoxes within this archetype that I have identified. When the child archetype is in the light, she is able to take these paradoxes and embody both sides and not feel like she has to choose. When she is challenged or in the shadow state, the child archetype will feel like she has to go to an extreme or choose one or the other. The first paradox is that between innocence and maturity. So the child archetype in the shadow feels like she has to either choose between being a grown-up or being a kid, that she can't be both at the same time. But that's not true. She actually can be both at the same time. The second paradox is that between responsibility and play. So here again, in her gifts, in her light, the child archetype knows, wow, I can play and be responsible at the same time, or I can have both sides of these in my nature, and I don't have to choose one or the other. But when she is challenged, she'll feel like, oh, I really just need to be uber responsible, or I just want to play all the time and I don't want to have to worry about anything that I'm taking care of. And the third of these paradoxes is the paradox between independence and belonging. So it's that push-pull between I can take care of myself, I don't need anyone, and then the other side of things where, gosh, I don't know what I'd do without these people in my life. The light side of the child archetype, when she is in her gifts, she says very much, okay, I can be both independent and I can belong in a family, in a group of friends, in a community. I need both. These are both sides of me that I balance, that I move between, and somehow too, she can come to a place where she can hold both at the same time. In the shadow, the child archetype will feel like she has to choose and be staunchly independent, or veer over into the extreme of codependence, where she's so interdependent, so much needs a sense of belonging in a group that she can't ever imagine being alone, which is also problematic. So the one paradox that I'm going to be specific about in this video is the paradox of responsibility and play. And I'm going to give you a couple examples of specific manifestations of the child archetype in this paradox as well. You'll see as we go along how this unfolds. So first of all, let's look at the extreme of too much responsibility. Please remember that this is in the shadow. This is the child archetype unbalanced. So when the child archetype is in the shadow, she is feeling like she needs to choose and be more responsible. She's really serious. She takes life so seriously that it goes to the point of monotony. And she really likes routine and always follows the rules. She's on the straight and narrow. The place of being in too much responsibility has one taking an overinflated view of one's responsibility. She doesn't think anybody else can do a specific job. It's just her doing the job. So there's that. And also she feels overburdened. She just keeps taking on more and more responsibilities. She loses her zest and her spark for life. She never leaves work behind. She identifies with her productivity. If she's not producing something, she doesn't have any value. She doesn't have any leisure time, of course, then, and she never relaxes. Now, I'm going to give you 2 manifestations of the child archetype and see if you could guess which one might be on the side of the paradox of too much responsibility. So one is the magical child, and the other is the orphan child. Okay, so I'll leave that with you. I'll give you the answer at the end of this video. Okay, let's look at the other side of the extreme of this paradox, and that is the extreme of having too much play. Here, the child archetype in the shadow never takes anything seriously and misses important tasks, and she could even go to the extreme of making grave mistakes that threaten her safety or livelihood. So these grave mistakes could be, missing an important meeting at work, or forgetting to show up for a specific day of work that is more important than another. The side of too much play here, the child archetype here, and the side of too much play, she's in denial of what needs to be done to survive. So she doesn't pay the bills. She forgets to bring her jacket when it's snowing outside. She shows up 2 hours late to work. Her zest for life actually takes her out of life. Her ideas don't manifest in the real world. She's living in a fantasy. She's also not taken seriously because she's always goofing off or playing around with things, but never carrying them through, or rarely carrying them through at least. And then, of course, she has way too much leisure time. So she's not contributing in a meaningful way to society because she's just goofing around, playing around all the time, and not actually committing or grounding what she's working on into real action that has effects and benefits in the world. Okay, so in looking at that, I'll give you those two child archetype manifestations again. So one hand we have the magical child, and the other hand we have the orphan child. Which one of those do you think would be in the extreme, in the shadow, of too much play? Pretty easy, I think, but it's fun to give you a few moments to think about it. So too much responsibility is the orphan child. This is the child that is abandoned early on in life and has to learn how to take care of herself. And so she just does. She takes care of everything. And she's super responsible, always busy. And then on the other side of it, too much play in the shadow is that magical child, always off in a fantasy or imagination, not really grounded in the here and now and in the real world. Oh, here we got Rio, my cat trying to pop in. So yeah, that's two of the ideas. In my class on the child archetype, I talk about the magical child, the orphan child, the divine child, the eternal child, the wounded child, and the nature child. I go through each of the paradoxes and how in the shadow each of those child archetypes veers towards one direction or another. So it sounds like it might be confusing or a lot. You can say hi to Rio. He's got some sap on his back, I guess. So it sounds like it might be a lot, but it's actually quite fun. I use fairy tales and go through those in the class. And each of those 6 manifestations of the child archetype, I spend an hour with each one. So it's really easy. It's also very it's easy to grasp. It's very self-explanatory once you start to get into it, and it can really then help you moving forward, identifying which child archetype you might be in and how you might be veering towards one side of the paradox or another. In this case, one side of too much responsibility or too much play, and realizing when you're not being balanced in those, and might be time to bring more play into your life, or it might be time to get a little more serious and get some work done. So thank you for joining me today. I look forward to the next time that we get to be together. I have a link to my class on the child archetype in the notes of this video, so please take a look at that, the description of this video. And yeah, look forward to the next time I get to see you. Have a great day.